George W. Bush married his wife Laura when he was 31 years old, which means he had plenty of time for dating before he found Miss Right. Well, we've spoken with some of the women the president went out with, including one woman to whom he was engaged. And as Stacy Sweet tells us, their recollections make up a romantic portrait of the man who's now president.
He was really a cute guy. But it wasn't that was attractive. It was his personality more than anything else.
One of the things that I liked about George is that he had a great expression on his face, a great twinkle in his eyes. And it's still there.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
The George they're talking about happens to be President George W. Bush. And these successful women share warm memories of a humble young man they dated. To them, he was plain old George.
George Bush, the boyfriend, was a very nice gentleman. He was fun to be with.
Sigrid Kingsbury met George W. in Valdosta, Georgia in the late 1960s. He was fresh out of Yale and was training to be a pilot in the National Guard.
How did he look in that flight suit?
George always looks good.
Sigrid remembers dancing at the Officers Club or going out for a bite to eat.
Bob's Big
Bob's
Boy?
Big Boy.
You folks ate at Bob's Big Boy? No extravagant dinners?
No, he loved hot hamburgers. Absolutely loved hamburgers.
And he also loved to fly. But what Sigrid recalls most about George W. is the funny, charming guy.
Was he affectionate?
Yeah, I think he was a very affectionate person. Yes.
Kind of guy to grab your hand, put his arm around you?
Sure. I'm going to go here.
Gotta ask, was he a good kisser?
I wouldn't say he was a good kisser, yeah. Yeah, I would.
Sigrid says after George W. earned his wings, they went their separate ways. George W. eventually moved to Montgomery, Alabama, where he met someone new.
Did you see a future president when you looked at George W. Bush back then?
No. No.
Fellow Texan Nee Baer says she first met George W. during a political campaign in Alabama, but only started dating him after they both returned to Houston, Texas in the early 1970s.
You always had the feeling with George that he combed his hair in the morning and that was the last time he looked in the mirror all day. Isn't that great?
Nee says she found George W.'s self-deprecating and fun-loving manner refreshing.
Would you describe George W. as a romantic?
No, not around me. I mean, he was not like, here, oh, honey bunny, let me put my arm around you. I mean, no.
But George W. Bush had once done something pretty darn romantic. He was engaged to a former Texas high school cheerleader named Kathy Wolfman. Their announcement made the Houston Society columns. Kathy declined an interview but wrote us this note. My memory on the particulars of our relationship is not very clear. George W. was a junior at Yale when he met Kathy. They'd been neighbors in Houston, and Kathy was considered quite a catch, but the wedding never took place.
Did he ever talk about his ex-fiancée, about what happened?
No. I mean, he told me that he'd been engaged and that he was too young.
Kathy wrote there was nothing extraordinary about the breakup. We were two very young people who fell in love, became engaged, and then gradually fell out of love.
Sounds like he might have been hurt by something like that.
Oh, he may have been. George would not kiss and tell.
Nee says she and George W. liked each other a lot. They loved baseball, but Nee admits George was kind of frugal.
Was he a cheap date?
Oh, you are not kidding. He was. Yeah. He was a cheap date, yeah.
And Nee says she had no idea how prominent his family was.
George always said, I'm very poor. I have got to make my own way in the world.
No heirs?
No heirs. None. Zero. He had an old car, which was rather beat up, and he had an apartment. I mean, it pretty much looked like George decoration, which wasn't just too spiffy.
Did you have fun?
Oh, tons of fun. Why would you go out with somebody you didn't have fun with?
George W. lived all over Houston, including an apartment at the Chateau Dijon.
When George Bush lived here, I was told that this was the quiet side, and over here, this is where the pool where everybody played volleyball and hung around and partied.
George W. lived on the quiet end, and coincidentally, Laura Bush lived here too, but they never met.
When he talked about his youth, he called himself young and irresponsible. Was that the George Bush you saw?
Irresponsible was not so much what I saw. He was very concerned about doing something with his life that would give the rest of his life meaning.
When George W. left for Harvard University, Nee returned to Alabama, and that was it. George W. would earn an MBA and return to Texas to start his oil business. George W.'s professional life was on track, but a blind date with a school librarian would steal his heart forever.
When I went home in 1977 in the summer to see my parents, and some friends asked George and me over to dinner, and we married right after that.
Asking Laura to marry me was the best decision I ever made.
I'm sure his wife is the ideal mate for him.
I would not want to be in Laura's shoes. I would not want to be scrutinized like they are.
Maybe so, but Sigrid says she couldn't resist seeing George W. again, and even paid $1,000 to come face-to-face with him at a fundraiser.
He came up to me and he said, Sigrid, and I said yes. And so we hugged each other and said, you haven't changed at all, and you haven't changed at all, and how's your mom, and how are your folks? It was nice to see him again.
Today, Sigrid is a real estate manager in Maryland. Nee Bear is an attorney in Alabama.
So you never imagined this guy with the messy car and the messy apartment would become the President of the United States?
Not in my wildest dreams.
I'm proud of him. I am so tickled for him. It's great to see him becoming the President of the United States of America. It's great.
We asked both of the president's old girlfriends whom they voted for. One voted for him, one didn't, but we won't say which.